Hey Zane, how's it going?
Hey Travis, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. All right. So today is the day that we go over all of our exam findings that we went and did last time. Do you remember those?
I do.
Cool. Yeah, so we did a bunch of different things. We put you in all these different positions. I made you move a lot. Probably didn't like that too much, right?
Well, it hurt. It did hurt.
Yeah,
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's a common thing to experience during these exams. But establishing whether that's normal or not, that's something that we're going to go over today.
Cool.
I know that we talked briefly last time about this kind of concept called subluxation. Do you remember what we were kind of talking about a little bit?
I do, but honestly, it went a little bit up and over.
Yeah, and so at this school, we really hold that pretty dear and valuable. That's something that this school is really unique from other schools, in fact. Subluxation is basically an area of lost connectedness. It's an area of dis-ease, and oftentimes that can be associated with things like, muscle spasms, things with decreased nerve function, tissue degeneration, things like that. So those things can definitely pop up with subluxation. But really, what we're thinking about with subluxation is we're thinking of an area of the spine that is disconnected, and there's interference associated with that. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense.
Yeah. So when we think of subluxation, all we want to think about is interference. Okay. Now, particularly, I like to deal with posture. Posture is a really important thing to address because that gives us an idea of where subluxations could be, and as well as global subluxations. Global subluxations is an area where multiple segments of the spine is displaced. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, would you think that posture is something that can be corrected in a short amount of time, in like 1 or 2 visits? Or do you think it takes a couple of visits?
Yeah, watch this.
Yeah, it's just like that, huh?
Yeah, no, it probably takes time, I would imagine.
Yeah, and usually with dealing with posture, it does take a little bit more time dealing with that. So I do want to address those areas of subluxations that we went over, but I also want to address the posture that we're dealing with when we're talking about that.
Wow.
Okay?
Great.
Cool. So what we did last time is we went over some cervical ranges of motion, which seemed actually pretty good. Everything was within normal capabilities. And when we went into your thoracics, that was also normal. When we saw some dysfunction, or maybe just lowered some abnormalities, just a little bit under normal, we saw that in the lumbar spine. And so I think we saw that on flexion. It was just a little bit diminished from where normal would be. But that's something that can be changed from everybody. But really what that just gives us an indication of is that there could be a problem associated with that.
Okay.
So another thing that we went over was we went over your right ankle, which is the main complaint that you came in with. I know that you had a sprain before you came in.
I did.
Going hiking, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't even get the rock climb, right?
I didn't.
Yeah,
Sad story.
It is a sad story. I'm sorry for that. But the biggest thing that we want to go over is, your goal. And your biggest goal, since you didn't get to go rock climbing then, so we want to get you back to rock climbing. We want to get you back into that hobby that you have.
Fantastic.
And that's something that I really want to strive towards. And I know that you want that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And so what we found in the right ankle was when we went into dorsiflexion, there was a lot of motion there. But when we went into plantar flexion, which is moving the toe down, there wasn't quite as much motion.
Gotcha.
Remember that?
I do. Yeah, it hurt too.
Yeah, and when we went into inversion, that was a bit painful. Eversion was actually lacking motion.
Okay.
So when you moved your foot out, there was actually not a lot of motion with that.
Yeah.
Inversion had motion, but it just with a little bit of pain. Do you remember when I was doing those motion tests and I was just actually even palpating this area of the foot, the lateral part of it? There was a little bit of pain in that musculature.
Oh, yes, there was.
Yeah, and so that's typical with a sprain, but it's definitely indicating areas of dysfunction. Typically with the sprain, it's not going to be just a normal process.
No, I mean, it feels stuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Totally. And so that could be indicating areas of ligamentous tear, muscle strain, things like that. And so when we did those tests, that kind of gave me a clearer, I guess, picture of what that could be leading to. We also took x-rays on the right ankle, and we saw that there was no fracture, but there was soft tissue swelling. So that's important to denote. So kind of what I've been led to the conclusion of is that there's some ligamentous tears on your lateral portion of your ankle, and then there's might be a ligamentous tear on your anterior portion of your ankle, as well as maybe there's some possible muscle strains associated with that.
Okay.
Is that clear to you?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Now another area that we focused on was your low back. That kind of came up as we were going through the process of working through these complaints. And that's typically common associated with a right ankle injury, actually. Does it make sense that if you have your right ankle not functioning properly, you might be put in a different posture than what you would normally be, causing there to be strain in that area?
Sure, I was lumping around.
Totally, yeah. And I saw that posture when you came in.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you were kind of a little bit more hunched. You were also leaning to one side more than the other.
Crippled.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to say it outright, but you know, that's what we're looking at, and that's totally common associated with an injury. But again, you know, dysfunction is never normal, and we definitely want to be able to treat that area for those dysfunctions, and hopefully get you back to an area where you're not experiencing pain, and where you're actually experiencing a vitality of life.
Great.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool. So before we get into your x-rays, which is another thing that we went through, I want to go ahead and give you an idea of what normal is. So when we look at normal, I'm going to back up here so we can give you a clear view. So when we look at normal, we want to see a nice lordosis in the cervical curve.
Oh, yeah.
That's typical. So you can also see, so this is a vertebral body, and in between each of those we see a disc space, and that disc space is nice and big. That's what we want to see on those x-rays associated with that. When we look at the thoracic curve, we want to see a nice kyphosis, which is the opposite curve of the cervical curve, and we want to see some disc space associated with those. In the low back, we want to see a nice lordosis, which is the same curve as this, but we want to see it in the low back with very good disc space associated with that. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and look at your x-rays, and I'll go ahead and go over any kind of things that we found.
Great.
So I always like to start with the cervical spine because it is an area of high innervation. And so when we look at your spine, we can see that there's actually a reversal of the curve. So when we look at that, that's actually a different posture than what we're seeing from normal. So when that area shifts out of alignment, do you think that the nerve function is stronger or maybe even weaker?
You tell me.
So I would think that it would be weaker.
Weaker. Okay.
And you know, that could be leading us to an indication that maybe those tissues surrounding that is possibly having maybe some dysfunction. Now, this may not be presented necessarily in pain, but it could be presenting in different ways that you know, that maybe some kind of dysfunction.
Yeah.
It might not even present at all, but usually associated with these postures, that is abnormal, and that could be leading to some kind of dysfunction. Now, I know I'm getting all into doom and gloom right here, but I wanted to give you, you know, a silver lining, if I will. You see these disc space associated with these?
Yeah.
So usually when we can't really see a lot of improvement associated with a spine, we tend to see these disc space really diminished, really decreased. What do you see with your disc space?
They're fat.
They're big and fat. That's right. And so that gives me an indication that we can really do some really good with your spinal curvature in your neck. We can actually do some really good treatments associated with that, and we can see some change, which is great. All right. So let's go to the other area. Here's your APOM. And when we look at your lower cervical curve, we see that everything is nice in alignment. There's no real facet degeneration, which is a joint on the spine. We don't see any kind of uncovertebral joint degeneration, which is another joint on the spine. And everything looks pretty intact, which is good. That's a great thing to see.
Great.
When we look at your thoracic curve, we see a little bit of a bend, but usually when we see that, that's typical of the heart, because there's a big muscle right there, and your body will usually tend to go opposite of that. So it's typical to see a curve, just a slight one, but this is nothing to really be too worried about. Sorry for that.
Great.
Everything making sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. When we go to this, we can see that everything is, there's not any kind of degeneration, which is good to see. We don't want to see that, but we do see that the curve is a little bit hyperkyphotic, which means that there's just more of a curve there.
Okay.
And so our plan associated with that area was just trying to reduce that, to get that posture back into more of a normal state. And when we see your lordosis of the lumbar spine, it's hard to see, but we just basically have this measurement here, which is telling me there's just a hyperlordosis. So hyperkyphosis, hyperlordosis means basically there's just more curve associated with it.
Just curvy.
You're just a curvy guy. And so something that we would want to do is just go ahead and diminish that. That would be in our care plan.
Okay.
So what you're probably wondering. So we've already kind of discussed what you came in with, any kind of areas of dysfunction. We've kind of gone over can I help that, and I think that going through these orthopedic exams with you has found that problem, has found those areas of subluxation, and I can definitely tell you that since there is no real degeneration associated with that, I can expect pretty good results with you, and I think that this is a case that we can definitely help. And definitely get you back to rock climbing, which is something that you really want to do. But before we go into that, we need to go into a little bit of some logistics associated with cost, because I don't want you to not know what this is all going to cost you. So at first, I'm going to go ahead and recommend you for care for 2 adjustments per week for 8 weeks. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you can make that?
I do.
Are you sure?
Yeah. 2 a week. I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So that care plan is associated with $30 per adjustment. Does that sound like something that you can afford?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When we make our health a priority, that is something that is important, and we need to be aware of the cost that's going to be associated with that.
Totally.
And so eventually, I'm going to switch you over to what's called CVP care, which is me addressing all of these postural exercises. That will be later down the road, but initially it'll cost $30 an adjustment, and then maybe if I would decide to do what's called traction to you, which is another modality, that will raise the cost up to $40 an adjustment. Does that sound okay to you?
I think I could do that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let's see. So I know that we've covered a lot today. Do you have any kind of questions for me?
Yeah. Do you expect my curve to go back to normal in that 30-day visit? However many days it was. 8 weeks.
So I expect to see change. I'm not going to promise you that your curve is going to go back to the normal position. And it might not even be normal for you. There's variance in every single population.
Okay. And
people are different. One person isn't necessarily going to get the same thing as another, or be anatomically, the same as somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
And so, somebody might be different from that, and you might be different from the model that we're seeing. But we won't know until we take you into that protocol and that procedure. But I think that we can definitely get some change, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
And get you back into those, good postures, and also just get you healing properly.
That'd be nice.
Everything sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the last thing that I need you to do is we just need to get you signed up for care. That means that I need to get you informed consent. So basically, I'm going to give you a paper of everything that we've gone over today, all the things that we've covered, and you just need to sign it. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, then let's go ahead and get you under care.
All right.
Awesome.